Welcome back to another edition of the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling. I'm your host, Shawn Michaels, joined by a returning co-host, Justin Lowery. Justin, technical issues hopefully behind us, some storms in the area. We are good to go 100% now for the next 30 minutes to talk about the world of wrestling.
Let's do it.
All right. So you weren't around last week, but the new format, we kind of touched on a number of different topics. And there's some interesting ones I want to get to, including Ronda Rousey's match on Monday Night Raw, a rare occurrence for her to be wrestling on free television, and maybe how competitive that match was, as well as from SmackDown, the Milwaukee video that was dropped by Aiden English, as well as the main event segment between Charlotte and Becky Lynch. I also want to touch on Super Showdown that takes place in Melbourne, Australia this weekend, and if that really feels like a big show in your estimation or not. But I want to start off with some pretty significant news. And, initially we were going to talk about the ratings for Monday Night Raw and how they really have dropped precipitously over recent weeks. But it seems like, looking at some other things, this is really an issue company-wide, because SmackDown's ratings were down. I saw Total Divas had one of its lowest ratings as well. Is this just a matter of, no matter if it's good or bad programming, people just aren't interested in WWE programming at this point, in your estimation?
I think that's clearly being shown. Unlike the Attitude Era, where you had WWE and WCW, wrestling seemed to be cool. Even through ECW, when the 21-year-olds, the 25-year-olds, they were wearing Steve Austin shirts, Rock shirts. I don't think today wrestling is considered cool. I just wrestling's not in. It's not the cool thing anymore. It's not edgy. People aren't paying attention, and I mean, the people that are watching are the people that are always going to watch. The casual fan is no longer watching wrestling anymore.
That being said, do you also consider the ratings to be a little bit misleading? Because really, overall, television ratings have sort of changed because there's so many different outlets. You could watch, I would assume, WWE programming on Hulu, and I'm guessing that doesn't factor into the ratings. Maybe it does. I'm no Dave Meltzer in that regard, but it seems like the way ratings are measured, and with all the money that this company's been receiving through television deals, that, it's still lucrative for them to have these programs. It just seems like the actual numbers that we're seeing are very disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Hulu. I know what the next day they post on their YouTube channel. I mean, there are segments that
get they're getting like 1 million plus views on some of those videos.
Right, but I think that also shows that maybe wrestling fans like, okay, I'll watch it on YouTube the next day because I only might want to see 2 segments. Oh, okay, I only want to see this person or that person, not the whole show. So if that's the case, it's also telling you as a whole, they're not really that interested in your product. As you know, I did not watch Monday Night Raw this Monday. The only segment that I did watch was the Elias Kevin Owens segment because there was a lot of buzz about that segment. So I want to go ahead and say, okay, I need to see this. I didn't feel like I needed to watch anything else, and I didn't. So I think you're seeing a lot of that today.
Now, it's ironic you mentioned that because we're going to get into that momentarily. That took place in the third hour from 10 to 11:05, 11:10, whatever they decided to cut Raw off. And that was the lowest rating for the 3 hours. And that, you kind of expect that because some of the younger kids or people going to bed. But, it was a low rating. It was just over 2 million. How concerning is it that probably the 2 most significant segments and the 2 best segments in many people's estimations weren't even seen by more than 2 million people because they took place, after 10 o'clock?
That has to be a concern, right? I mean, the whole basis of announcing your main event at around 8:30 is so people I got to stay up to see this or tune back in to see it. And if, the highest rated hour is the 8 o'clock hour. Then it dips to the 9 o'clock hour.
Because you get about a half an hour before football starts when you have the 8 o'clock start time.
And, I'm glad you brought that up. We do have to mention, historically, every year when football comes back, the ratings do take a hit. Now, not really to this level have we seen it before, but every football season they do lose, maybe 500,000 or so viewers. It's very interesting to me. I think the network has 1.8 million subscribers, okay? So, that's 1.8 hardcore fans that have the network. what was the rating overall for Raw? 2.5 million. So
Yeah, it was in that ballpark.
that tells you there's about a little under 1 million people that are maybe watching Monday Night Raw who don't have the network. That's not a lot of casual fans.
Right.
That's just isn't.
So we're going to get into maybe some of the techniques to try to get more casual or old-time fans into Raw, but that was with the main event. I want to talk about a segment that was a little bit earlier in the show, and it was the Kevin Owens Elias segment. To me, this was special, and it was sort of something that maybe you didn't anticipate. It didn't really see it coming. Kevin Owens, Bobby Lashley, big whoop. Not a lot of people probably excited. That's not going to draw necessarily a lot of viewers to watch Monday Night Raw, just that match itself. What ended up happening was a segment that I think we will remember, at least months from now, if not years from now, between Elias and Kevin Owens, and really Elias bashing Seattle, bringing up the fact that the Supersonics are no longer there, and, hey, cheap heat, yes, but man, did it get a reaction. I measured about 6 consecutive minutes of the audience just booing nonstop, and it only stopped because Lio Rush came out. I don't remember a reaction like that negative, since Roman Reigns, the night after he defeated The Undertaker at WrestleMania. That was probably a little louder, and Roman kept trying to talk, and ultimately I think he just said, "It's my yard," or whatever, walked off, which it was a really cool segment, the way it worked out. But this, you haven't heard a reaction this loud and this long for a long, long time in WWE.
Yeah, I see. When I watched it, back, I didn't actually think of the Roman Reigns promo that you brought up, but I think you're spot on there. It actually reminded me of, if you remember years ago, Vicky Guerrero, John Cena were in the ring together, and John Cena was actually even telling the crowd to simmer down to allow Vicky to talk, and every time she would start to talk again, it was so loud with the boos. So it actually reminded me of that segment more than the Roman. But
yeah, Vicky and both Stephanie, they both sort of get that type of reaction.
Yeah.
But in a different way. They're not in-ring competitors. They're women who really try to make themselves as annoying and hard to listen to as possible. Whereas Elias and Kevin Owens, it's sort of more of a cutting insult.
Yeah, and that was Wrestling 101. Heel comes out to the ring. He says something about the city. That's as basic as a heel tactic as you can get, is to talk about the city as, they're trash here, or the sports teams. It's instant boost. And, clearly they still haven't gotten over, the Supersonics leaving to go to, Oklahoma City. That was pretty intense. And made it enjoyable because you could actually see Elias and Kevin Owens trying to deal with it.
They totally ad-libbed. I know for a fact that some of the stuff was off the cuff.
The crew, production company, putting the lights up a little bit so you could see the crowd reaction, and Elias and ad-libbing that, responding to that.
Yeah, I have a story about that. When he said, "Whoever's responsible for that, I'm going to make you lose your job." It was Vince McMahon who was responsible for, But, I think Vince's job is safe. They were ad-libbing. It truthfully probably could have gone on longer if it wasn't so late in the show. That could have been a 10-minute interaction with the crowd if they had a little bit more free reign. It was memorable. Should it lead, or more specifically, will it lead to a push for both of them or either one of them? Because right now, when you're talking heels, those guys are getting the job done. They're entertaining, and yet they're making the audience hate them.
Why not? Again, leads back to the ratings. They're not good. So you have nothing to lose, because clearly people aren't all that interested. What? Please. I think Kevin Owens is, very entertaining. He's always been entertaining. Elias has been entertaining since he's made his main roster debut. And, together these guys are actually gold. Maybe it's a pairing, Kevin Owens has been floundering as of late, and Elias doesn't, he just seems to float, without anything concrete. He just comes out, does the same thing. Maybe a pairing together, is a good thing, for both of them.
The other segment that drew a lot of attention on Raw, and maybe not necessarily for the right reasons, was the final segment. And I know you said you didn't necessarily see it, but you know what happened. Shawn Michaels, Kane, Undertaker, then Triple H. Couple notable things in this one. One, Shawn Michaels is taking bumps. I mean, it's no surprise, or I guess it's no secret that there are significant rumors that he will be wrestling and probably wrestling within about a month's time or so. He looks like he's prepared for taking bumps like that. Secondly, he's like your identical twin now, Justin. I was stunned. The hat comes off, Shawn Michaels, and he's completely shaven bald. It was sort of a weird visual. I didn't know that. I know you said you weren't necessarily surprised, but I think a lot of people were. The whole thing, though, it just seems so. I don't know the right word for it. It just doesn't. It's not 1998 or 2000 again. Why is this the main event of Raw? Is this a sign of desperation, really?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I have a bunch of thoughts on this, so I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible. I actually see. I knew he was bald because I knew he cut his hair and I knew he was losing it. Blah blah blah. So that didn't shock me like it shocked you. Plus, I look in the mirror every day. But seeing him like that, I don't want to see him like that because my memory of Shawn Michaels is HBK doing the great stuff in the ring with the long hair. That's Shawn Michaels. Now you're getting a Shawn Michaels with no hair, who has a haircut like Steve Austin now, who hasn't wrestled in 8 years, I believe. He's now over 50 years old.
The Heartbreak Kid nickname needs to be retired. I mean, that's...
He's not a kid anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not the handsome 22-year-old. Bar down on that one, Justin. But yeah, he's... I mean, it's just... that's trying to get the fans back in that maybe have stopped watching in the past 5 or so years. But I don't think that's going to succeed long term. And it's coming at the expense of your current roster and your newer stars.
Well, did you happen to see last couple of days Kevin Nash's comments?
Something about the young guys not getting over.
Nobody cares about the young guys, and that's why these guys got to keep doing it, and blah blah blah, and keep typical Kevin Nash form. He has a point where I don't think people do care about the young guys, but whose fault is that?
I think Vince would probably agree with that to an extent.
They don't put these guys in position to be stars.
Right.
It's not like there's people that are not capable. There's so much talent. It's unbelievable. Yet they focus on the same one or two individuals. I mean, they choked out Finn's push to give Kane a rub. Freaking Kane.
Yeah, that's what. If you're using Kane to put over Finn Balor, to your point, okay, yeah. I mean, I think you could do it better than that. But yeah, the young guys being put over, he's going to theoretically benefit from beating a legend. Same with Triple H, and truthfully, Triple H does put over younger people a lot of the time. But I mean, think of the WrestleMania match. It was Triple H and Kurt Angle. Now Triple H has wrestled John Cena this year, and now wrestling The Undertaker. That's not benefiting any younger guys. Those are two old guys, or in this case, 4 old guys going at it. That it's just none of them are going to look what they should have. They're not going to look anything like their prime. It's just going to be sad.
The only one that could probably still look somewhat decent is Triple H.
Right, I agree. I think he has a nice little role wrestling 4 or 5 times a year.
I mean, freaking Kane's a mayor now. I mean, he's a mayor of a city, and he's going to be off in Saudi Arabia or whatever, wrestling in a mask and a wig. It's crazy. The Undertaker we've seen for the last 3 or 4 years, he should retire. He shouldn't wrestle anymore. He has a hard time even doing the tombstone. I feel like
he really struggled with that on Raw.
He just can't do it anymore. And Michaels is a big question mark. I mean, he's one of the best of all time, but it's been 8 years. He's over 50. What does he have left?
And he left in the perfect retirement form, which you never see in wrestling.
And he's one of the guys who never came back. Every wrestler loses that retirement match or retires and always comes back. I always respected him for not doing that. And I don't know if it's because the money that was offered is so great, but I'm sure it's been offered before, or him coaching down in NXT has given him that bug again to be around the young guys. Like, you know what?
I think it's more so that than anything else.
It has to be, right?
It's that Saudi Arabia money. I mean, they're getting astronomical millions and millions of dollars. And that's why they probably don't care a ton about the ratings of Raw or SmackDown declining.
For me, I have no interest in it. Honestly, none. I'm not going to watch the show. I'll read what happens, but I don't I just don't care. I really don't.
Something that I think you might care about, Justin, was the women's match on Raw, Ronda Rousey and Ruby Riott. And this is interesting for a couple of reasons. One, Ronda Rousey doesn't wrestle that much. She's sort of a special attraction. She's not a Brock Lesnar where she's just never working, but they save her, and I think that they've done a decent job with that. So when she wrestles on live TV, it's significant, and certainly I think they were hoping for bigger ratings because she was wrestling on Raw. Nonetheless, she goes against Ruby Riott, and I think when you look on paper, you're expecting, okay, this is maybe like a 5-minute match. Ruby gets maybe a quick flurry, and Ronda's going to dominate and win pretty easily. Not to the degree that she defeated like Alicia Fox, but it's not going to be real super competitive. Man, Ruby Riott got way more offense. If you go time of possession, to borrow a sports analogy, she dominated Ronda. One, it's great for Ruby Riott because her stock is up after this match, but it's also sort of confusing because it seems like they're going back and forth on how they're going to book Ronda Rousey, and after what we saw at SummerSlam against Alexa Bliss, she's sort of gone from being untouchable in terms of dominating to really being on the receiving end more than dishing out the punishment to Alexa Bliss and to Ruby Riott in her last 2 matches.
Yeah, you got to pick one. I don't care which way they go, but you got to pick one. If you're going to make her the dominant thing, force like they did with Brock Lesnar, then you got to stick with that. I mean, I have no problem them making her a little vulnerable because she's a rookie, honestly, and you could play that storyline up like, she's a beast, blah blah blah, but in the WWE ring, she still has lots to learn. And
but it didn't feel like that on Monday. It just felt like Ruby was better for most of that match, right?
But they played it up like, Ruby's, even though she's only been in the WWE this long, she's wrestled for 8-9 years on the independent scene. I mean, you could at least make it a storyline, play it up so that you have more competitive matches, and maybe people can believe that, okay, Ronda might lose this match. You actually believe it. At least I get that. But they got to pick one way or the other. They can't one match, Ronda goes out there and beats the crap out of someone for 5 minutes, and then the next match it's 10 minutes of a back and forth, and but you got to pick one, because then it makes another wrestler look stupid. Whoever she destroys or squashes,
right, exactly,
look awful, and that doesn't do anybody any good.
So it's going to lead to a 6-person tag this Saturday on the Super Showdown. Ronda and the Bellas against the Riot Squad, assuming Liv Morgan is good to go. I don't know for sure that she's actually going to wrestle. They might have someone replace her, but it'll probably be Alicia Fox or someone, along those same lines. Bellas and maybe Natalya. One of them, you figure, if not all of them, are going to turn on Ronda Rousey sooner rather than later, right? I mean, that's got to be where this is leading.
Well, if the rumor is Nikki and Ronda at Evolution, isn't that the perfect time now for Nikki to turn on her and set that in motion?
You would think. I mean, Evolution's coming up sooner rather than later.
3 weeks away now, about 3 weeks away, so something got to give, right?
Yeah. So we'll see where it goes from there. Interesting the way that Ronda was presented on Raw this week. Want to jump over to SmackDown, and the 2 big takeaways. One was the Milwaukee bombshell, if you will, Aiden English, showing a video, him and Lana. You and I are on the same page with this one. It was cut off prematurely. We're going to find out, I think, in the long term that Lana wasn't really cheating on her husband. What did you make of this? I didn't even think they were going to show footage yet. I thought they were going to tease it a little bit longer, but seems like this one, it's going to be a long-term storyline.
Yeah, a typical wrestling angle. When I first saw it, it doesn't bother me. I'm not offended by any means, but I kind of chuckled because I did bring this up to you. I said the WWE likes to take a political platform about the Me Too movement, the women's revolution. Look at what our women are doing here, and they turn around and they put Lana in a storyline to make her look like she's cheating on her husband, to make her slut shaming, as you could say. So to me that's a step back. Which it's wrestling, it's all characters, it's all scripted, it's all acting, but if you're going to put yourself on that political platform and go, hey, look at us, and try to get that positive PR, you're kind of being hypocritical when then you put a woman of note in a storyline like this. That's my only thought on it.
I know I asked you a couple weeks ago what the future would hold for Aiden English. This has to bode well for him, right? I mean, whether he defeats Rusev when it's all said and done or not, he's getting significant time in a big storyline here on SmackDown. And I think he's sort of changed his character quite a bit. He's not the artiste. He's not kind of just out there to do the Enzo Amore role. He's taken on a much more serious tone. And, he's doing a good job, at least with the promos, making people care, at least as of right now.
It can't hurt, but honestly, I feel once this is over, we won't see him hardly ever. I think Rusev will win the feud. They'll have a match, he'll lose, and then I think he'll just be off. Camera. I mean, there'll be nothing for him to do. I don't think they see a future in him. There's so many other guys on the roster,
right?
Well,
I will say with SmackDown, I feel like guys like him have a chance. On Raw, a lot of people of his mold don't even have a chance. Whereas on SmackDown, you have guys like R-Truth that get a 15-minute segment or a main event.
This is true, but if anything, he's not going to be featured weekly. He might pop up once a month, in a backstage segment with R-Truth or something. Because eventually, this thing with Carmella is going to die down, and you won't see Truth for a month or two, and then he pops back up again for a month or two. That's what Aiden English, is going to do.
Something that you love on SmackDown, certainly two women who are deserving of a main event, and that's exactly what they got this past week. Charlotte and Becky Lynch. This storyline has been brewing. It seems like this is maybe the best storyline in the company right now. I think AJ and Samoa Joe could be a contender as well. Certainly, I think it's better than anything that Monday Night Raw has. Becky Lynch is just thriving right now, and it's kind of interesting because Charlotte, conversely, it's a weird spot for her because she's getting boos, and really, I don't think the company wants that reaction. They're probably okay with Becky getting cheered. I'm not sure that WWE wants Charlotte getting booed out of the building like she did on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I mean, the whole feud so far, I think Becky's been cheered pretty well in every town, every segment. I don't, even when she tried saying the fans weren't with her, she was still getting some cheers. Look, people like Becky, and this isn't them cheering the Cole Smart heel either. This is them actually cheering Becky because they want to be behind Becky. This isn't like, you know how sometimes the Cole heel gets, in smart cities gets cheered. This is them really caring about Becky, and because I think they think Becky has a point. They got to pull a double turn. Keep Becky's character the same. She can still be that badass woman with an edge. But you clearly have to pull Charlotte into a heel territory here. She has to do something heelish, attack her, whatever, because she's getting booed already. So you might as well go all the way.
But we know this company is sort of stubborn when it comes to stuff like that, right?
Very stubborn. But is that really paying off for them to be stubborn? Honestly, is it?
Right.
Honestly, you can't say being stubborn with Roman has paid off. It's been, 2-3 years? And you can't say that's worked, and you can't say this is working. Go with what the fans want. Let the fans dictate, because then maybe you're giving them what they want, and they'll show up and watch. They'll go out and, pay the money to come to a show if they're getting what they want.
Is Becky going to hold the title for more than a couple of weeks' time, or is it going to be Charlotte again?
Question. I hope, but I do have a feeling that Charlotte is going to win it back.
So she's wrestling for the title in Australia this Saturday, and you think there's probably a chance maybe at Evolution that these two meet with the title on the line?
Yes, and I think if she wins, it's going to be there. And it'll be her 8th reign as women's champion, and I think that puts her first all time. And I think that's what they're going to be going for.
That doesn't mean anything to me, but
to
your point, yeah, it's whatever they want.
Right.
So we mentioned that they're going to be facing off Saturday, which is it's Saturday night in Australia. It's 5 a.m. here, Eastern time zone. Super Showdown. People didn't even know the name of it for quite some time. This is sort of a weird dynamic, Justin, because they're making this out to be a massive show, but if it's anything like the Greatest Royal Rumble that took place in Saudi Arabia, that felt like a glorified house show. So what's your expectation for a show like this?
I'm going to assume it's probably going to be better than that because I think it has to be. But I don't think much better. I just don't. I mean, I'm not going to watch, unless I read something that makes me want to watch a certain thing. I mean, I'm not getting up at 5 a.m. to watch it. And by the time I wake up, the show would probably be close to being over or all the way over. Apparently, it's going to be another 5-hour show. And with all the wrestling there is today, I'm not going to spend another 5 hours watching this super show. I just don't care.
So let's say theoretically Samoa Joe wins the title. Is that something that would get you to at least watch a match like that?
I would turn it on and go to that match and watch it. Or even if he doesn't win the title and you get up and say, hey, Styles and AJ, 5-star match or 4.5-star match. Okay, for me as a wrestling fan, I'm going to go watch that match.
One note about this show, and I'm going to give you a trivia question here momentarily. A lot of this stuff has just been continuations of the feuds that already have been in place. There's very few things that are like new here, so it does feel like a house show in that regard. With the time zone, you have to wonder, are they going to really treat this like a major event? But it seems like for whatever reason, this show and the upcoming Crown Jewel are getting more promotion than a lot of the regular pay-per-views. So it's sort of confusing as a fan. Which one am I supposed to really care about? Which ones are the ones that are can't miss, and which ones are kind of like, if I have nothing else to do.
It's clearly them trying to build their global brand. More than this is clearly more for the global audience than it is us here in the U.S. Clearly, and it's clearly to get subscribers because it's not going to be on. You can't order this on pay-per-view, so they're trying to build it up, saying, "Hey, if you want to see Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker and Triple H again, you have to become a WWE Network subscriber." And they hope that once you subscribe, that you stick with it. So it's clearly all about trying to get subscribers.
So you mentioned it's a 4 or 5 hour show. How many matches, off the top of your head, how many matches can you name?
Oh wow. 1, 2.
Well, go ahead and run them down.
Okay. Well, of course, the Triple H Undertaker match.
Yep.
Becky Charlotte, which we discussed. The Iconics against Asuka and Naomi, which is. I'm
surprised you got that one third, but yeah, you're right.
I actually watched SmackDown. Really, I enjoy SmackDown. Let's see. There's the triple threat, the Shield versus Ziggler, Braun, and Drew McIntyre.
Yes.
Did I say Joe and AJ?
You got that now.
Is Bryan and The Miz wrestling each other?
They are, and that's one that's sort of gone under the radar a little bit. That's going to determine the number one contender for the WWE title. And it could realistically be the end of that Bryan-Miz feud for quite some time.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, that makes me think AJ's going to keep the belt. So I don't see Bryan. Bryan and Joe would be awesome, but that's another story. I think Ronda and the Bellas, right?
Yep.
Against the Riot Squad.
Yes. You're doing better than I thought.
I at least like to know what's going on.
Cena Lashley against Elias and Kevin Owens.
Yeah, I should know that from the segment, but yeah.
And this, honestly, I'm not exaggerating. This might be the match I most want to see. Cedric Alexander, Buddy Murphy.
That should be entertaining.
And that's in Buddy's home country. That's why he's there. That's why the Iconics are there. They have it,
right.
Also, Emma, formerly, they've had some good talent out of Australia.
Yeah.
So that is a full card. You have pretty much everyone of note in the company, with the exception of Nakamura, which that title seems like a complete joke. Randy Orton, I don't believe is booked. Jeff Hardy, I think, is probably off TV for the time being anyway. But that is a star-studded group of people, and it's a ton of matches. So it does feel like it is a legitimate pay-per-view in that regard.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it's still weird builds to me. I don't know, like the build is like.
Is it too much going on at once? Because we have this Super Showdown, we have Evolution, which really hasn't been too much promoted. Crown Jewel already has the main event booked, that in early November in Saudi Arabia. Mixed Match Challenge is going on. The Mae Young Classic is going on. SmackDown 1000's in 2 weeks.
That's a lot. that's way too much going on. And Survivor Series is going to be at the end of November, which, it's supposed to be one of the big four, which I don't really believe that anymore. But still, there's a lot of big-time shows, and again, we're just going to be seeing repeat, matches. We've talked about before. We're seeing, same matches over and over again.
Yeah, third, fourth time around. It just seems like there's so much going on that you can have too much content that things become watered down and they lose their significance. And I think that's exactly what's going on here. Fans can't see everything usually, so if you're making them pick and choose and they don't know which one's really important, they might just tune out for all of it.
Right, and I would assume too there's probably an NXT takeover
right before Survivor Series.
So that there's another big show coming up, in the month of November too.
Just way too much, I think, in my estimation. Justin, we've reached the 30-minute point, so I want to wrap this up. Any final thoughts on what we saw this week or what's going to be upcoming in a couple of days?
I guess the big thing is, what we wake up to Saturday morning from the results, to see if anything comes of it, anything new, or if it's going to be the same old, and
I agree. I think if you see big-time results, maybe title changes or storyline developments, that will set the tone for future super shows, whether it be in Australia, Saudi Arabia, or whatever, to make those must-see, even though the time's always going to be an issue. I think if you see big-time developments as opposed to what we saw at the Greatest Royal Rumble, it's going to make those shows much more must-see in the future.
Yes, I agree.
That's going to do it for this week's edition of the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling. Of course, you could check us out on Twitter. It is 5-Star Pod Wrestling. You could check out Justin's Twitter handle as well as my own. You can see those throughout the show on our little name tags there. Also, I want to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and go back and check out all the old videos that date back to March. That's going to do it for this week. Another edition of the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling complete. Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you again next week.